to the Sports Den. Scott is off tonight, so it's just me and Brandon talking about this week in sports this week. Brandon, how you doing?
As well as I can be. This is kind of a lull for our teams. I mean, for my team specifically, but for you've got a horse in a race.
Yes.
That's you're the beacon of light for our group here of hosts. So
Yes, it's oddly strange having the only team that looks like they're built to win a championship, or at least contend for a championship right now, because the Mets aren't, and the Yankees are so inconsistent that if they do make it, I don't see much happening there. But hey, the silver lining for the Mets is the fact that in the last three complete seasons, the team that won the National League pennant was in fourth or fifth place at this point of the season.
However, none of those teams were the Mets. So
true. Just
how long
do you think before the Mets should the Mets sell at the deadline?
I don't know if they will necessarily be flat out sellers, but they definitely will be sending some guys away. They need to bring in guys. They need starting pitching help so badly. The fact that we have a rotation that can't consistently get past the third or fourth inning, but then we get to a bullpen that is essentially the same thing, and then we just have and we lose all these games, giving up 7, 8, 9 runs. It really is. I can't even believe that at this point of the season, if you had told me back in December, January, February, that this is what it's going to be, I would have laughed at you, really, because I really, especially after last year, was coming into this season with such hope, and now I'm not in. I tried to have a virtual background of hell behind me because that's where we are as a fan base. And this is bad. And again, I don't want to jump on the Steve Cohen thing because we act like we didn't just have one of the worst owners in North American sports history before him. So let's cool it on that. But there does need to be some moves going forward, both rosters, both behind the scenes. I don't necessarily have exact names. I don't have an exact idea of what they should do, but like something's got to budge. I mean, this is insane.
This pitching is just an absolute crap show. Depending on two late 30s, 40-year-old aces, was a bad choice, but better than re-signing DeGrom. So I will give him credit for that. Even swapping out DeGrom for Verlander, even though Verlander's been in and out, it's still a net positive. The problem is
the fact that we're going into July and basically the best move we made is a move we didn't make really speaks volumes, though. But continue.
It does, and that's why Cohen is not the problem. Epler is, and then you have your closer getting injured in a freak, celebration accident during the World Baseball Classic, so he's out for the year, which takes out which exacerbates the bullpen problems. In addition to the fact that the starters can't get out of the fourth inning, they're just gassed across the board. I mean, yesterday's game was just absolutely pathetic, in the sense that you only have 3 relievers in that entire bullpen worth a damn. And 2 of them were unavailable because they pitched the day before. So you have Buck stuck with Robertson waiting for Robertson in the 9th, but you need to get there. And there was nobody else that could do it. So that result, as pathetic as that was, it really isn't. It's kind of expected. They just don't have the horses. I give it about 3 weeks before I start selling.
They have starting rotation problems in the bullpen just in terms of availability, like you said. Yes. Guys pitched the night before, And yeah, you depending on what they do, you can pitch a guy 2, maybe 3 max, depending on how much of a workhorse they are.
Yeah.
But you can't go more than that. That's not what they are built for. That's not what you pay them to do. That's why you have all this money and these years, not with the, in terms of the age of some of these guys in your starting rotation, that there are a lot of kind of these really fragile X factors that have already been completely broken. It like the health, the inconsistency, just not having the Verlander won a damn Cy Young last year.
Right. So it's not like he was washed up and over the hill.
And a ring, even though that's that's obviously a team thing, but it's. And we have Kyle says Verlander is a trade piece. How do you feel about that as a trade piece?
I wouldn't actively start shopping him, but if a team calls me with a good offer, especially for bullpen help or prospects, I take it.
Would you trade Max before Justin Verlander?
I would prefer to. It's kind of a tough one because it's more like whoever. Because Max has 1 year left or 2. I forget.
Are they both 2? They're lined up.
They could be.
I think they're both lined up, and then because you have Senga on a 5-year deal, so then once the 2 years are done, you have Senga as your number 1.
Yeah. If you can get a decent, it would depend on the offer. I would listen. I probably wouldn't pull the trigger unless it really blows me away, which I don't think that they're going to get that kind of offer, unless the Dodgers are coming up and offering them, half their farm system, which they won't. I don't see that happening. And the bullpen, bullpens are an issue across baseball. Just the Mets are exceptionally unlucky.
And in all this time, we've really only talked about pitching, where that's really just part of the problem. Another issue is how bad they are defensively. I mean, last year they were like the 2000 Ravens of baseball. I mean, they barely made errors, and this year they're juggling the ball all over the place, throwing the ball, 10 feet over, first baseman's heads. I don't know what I don't know where the disconnect is, because it's not just one thing that's disconnected. It is so many pieces that aren't clicking.
Yeah.
And there doesn't seem to be an answer.
I would say that there's definitely something is off, because it's like they've regressed to the LOL Mets of past years. Especially with the defensive miscues and airmailing of throws over the first baseman's head. That's the type of typical same old Mets that we're used to in this fan base, and that returned in full force. Something is off. It's the garbage that Epler has put on this roster. The fact that we have how many DHs and none of them can actually hit. You have one job. You literally only have one job. And we somehow can't end up for the Mets to find somebody decent. And you keep trotting out Roof and Vogelbach for really since the deadline last year. This team has just been mostly downhill.
Yeah, except for Escobar's late season spurge. And again, they're pitching,
and they just dumped it.
And right, and because they had a lead that ended up becoming a not a lead, and then losing the division, but just in terms of their own personal trajectory over that season, I mean, it was kind of heading downhill. But then you come right in the off season, you make moves. Yes, guys are of age, but considering what they had just done, you try and retool and you go right back at it. But we're, June 26th now, and we're approaching 10 games under 500, in a division where we're barely better than the Nationals. And
Yeah.
I hate to team up with Xander Bogaerts, but teaming up on the Nationals here.
I always wait until an All-Star break to fully judge a Mets season. They still have a few weeks to possibly wake up and turn it around. I'm not hopeful,
I
but
just
it is possible because it's happened 3 times in the past 4 years with the throwing out the fluke third of the season for COVID in 2020. Throwing that out, this has happened each of the last 3 seasons, and each of them have been from the NL East. So there is precedent there. We, as Mets fans, we're not used to that being us because usually it is they're the ones giving up the leads at the end of the year, not the ones coming back from behind. At least in this generation. Just there's something not right.
I
wouldn't fire Buck now, but if this continues for the rest of the season, they do need to bring in a new manager next year. There's a reason why every team Buck has usually gets better after they fire him.
Yeah, and I just can't get over this Braves series a couple weeks ago where I said that I really think that it's not necessarily a turning point, but it really could. It really is, I think, the determining factor of how this season will going to go. You had 3 games in which you had a lead, and you couldn't hold them, and I just thought that was it. And now, even with an All-Star break, I just don't see because what's going to happen? One of these guys, maybe Pete gets voted, or Lindor gets voted, or some of these guys, and who you have. Your one guy has his fun for a couple of days, and then he comes. And you don't make moves, really significant moves, which I don't know who they're going to be. What realistic move is out there for?
They shouldn't.
From a DH standpoint alone, who's out there that they'll. I wanted JD Martinez in December. And he's raking out in LA. Started a little bit slow, but he got it together. And that was a perfect DH for this lineup. Where you have a not just an experienced hitter, but a really good, one of the best DH we've had the last decade in JD Martinez. You got to kind of not forgotten about up in Boston. But he and guys like Dever and Betts when he was there, and Bogaerts kind of took the shine away. But Martinez was raking in that lineup, and you have Darren Ruff and Vogelback. Ruff's not here, but you have Vogel kind of rotate the guys that you have that aren't DHs, but you put them in the role, and then if they're everyday guys, it throws off the rhythm, and it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. I can count legitimately on 2 hands how many games I've watched this season. Some due to scheduling, just because of life, and some just because of really how putrid. But
yeah,
before I lose brain cells for the rest of the show, we should probably
and we'll just end on Kyle's point here. There's some parallels here where it's just pieces thrown together, throw out big contract money, but because their farm system was gutted from the last few years of the Wilpon coupon regime, it takes a while to build that back up. This is how the Dodgers started as well, and Cohen has gone on record multiple times saying he wants to be Dodgers East. So it takes a while to build up the farm system, and they're not quite ready yet. So for them to go out and get somebody it really doesn't make any sense. Take the L. That's why I'm okay to just take the L this year. If you can flip a few guys for some prospects down the road, if they don't make a move, and then if they don't make a move up the standings in the next few weeks, I'm okay to to sell and try again next year. If somebody makes you an offer that blows you out of the water for Verlander or Scherzer, I'd consider it. But I don't, with the money that's attached to them, I don't think that's going to happen. But maybe, stranger things have happened. Normally, a team that is winning their division doesn't sell their closer, but the Brewers did that last year with Josh Hader. So trade deadline makes for some weird stuff. We'll see. So
all I know is this is totally effing up the chances of getting Shohei Ohtani.
It is, and that's honestly the last thing to keep Epler around for, because of Epler's relationship with Ohtani and bringing him to the Angels. But if that doesn't happen, there's no use for him at this point. So, switching gears to the headline topic, Chris Paul has been traded again.
He was Carmelo Anthony'd.
Yeah. So
Hawks
we have
legend, Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this trade happened, and we talked about this last week of the possibility of him being a trade piece to be moved somewhere else. But yeah, if you told me the Golden State Warriors, that legitimately might have been the last team I picked to make that deal, or to acquire him, considering the construction of the roster that they currently have. Going into next season, the Golden State Warriors might be the shortest team in the league on average. What legit bigs do they have? And I know they play this kind of hybrid with bigs that can play outside and can shoot, but you don't have anybody. And they don't really love guys like Kuminga.
Kuminga's the only real big guy, quote unquote, who I could think of.
And a lot of people, to do the deal with the Wizards, I think they should have gotten Porzingis, get Tingus Pingus, because at least now you address the shooting and the big issue in one, and you can put him in a winning situation, especially where he doesn't have to be anywhere close to the first option. But then it's just obviously the Chris Paul, that's a what if. But the Chris Paul thing, to come into this roster, and what role is he going to be? Obviously, he's not your starting point guard. He's not your starting shooting guard. He is not a forward or big. So what's going to happen?
There's a few different ways I could see them going here. Realistically, they already gave Poole an extension, so he was coming up on big money. 4 years, $123 million, give or take, I believe, was the extension that he's kicking in for. The new CBA that's going into effect next year increases luxury tax thresholds. Right. They're trying to do a Steve Cohen tax on except this will be the LeCobb family tax going after the Warriors, and how they really don't care about it. So with those penalties increasing, that could be so it could just be a money move to try and get Poole off the books. It means they're going to try and re-sign Draymond Green, which I think is completely idiotic, because if you obviously can't have both with all of the garbage between them, you can't bring them both back next year. I understand that. Personally, I think Draymond is more trouble than he's worth, and they should let him go. But Curry wants him, so they're going to try and bring him back. Also,
they're cutting their nose to spite their face.
Right.
They're and also giving up a small future because of this. I guess it's honestly at this point almost past kind of that they are. I know they just won a chip, year before, but this past kind of, lore where I don't know if that's the move.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing this as a move for this year. They think it's going to, one last shot at the title. Although personally, I agree with you. I think their last shot at the title was the 2022 run. To think that they're going to catch lightning in a bottle again with an aging core like this, especially with Draymond Green, who has his talent for, I think, the past 3 seasons has not been worth the trouble. All of the other garbage that you get with Draymond Green. So they're going to try and bring him back. Okay, that might work this year. Even that, I'm very skeptical about. But also with Chris Paul, you can easily move him. And at this point in their careers, you can't really ride Curry into the ground as much as he has been. He's played a lot of minutes the last few years, racked up a lot of miles. So you could kind of have Paul and Curry each spelling each other. Does Chris Paul want to come off the bench? I mean, I think that if you're bringing him off the bench, maybe occasionally playing a 3-guard lineup with Thompson, there's a few different things you can do. Also, it's a hedge where in the locker room, Chris Paul is a less intense Draymond Green, as some of his teammates have said in the past. So you could also count on him kind of as a locker room guy to maybe him and Draymond could be a good cop, bad cop kind of thing with younger players. That could be part of what they're going for here. And with Bob Myers recently stepping down, he was the team president, the front office.
It's
one who put this
Jr.
team
now.
together. So with him stepping down, and Mike Dunleavy Jr. now the GM, he's a patsy for Curry to have him to ask him to do whatever he wants, essentially, like LeBron and other players have with other teams.
And he also said that he had no intention of trading Poole, and then 4 days later traded Poole. So there's also that aspect, which I get. GMs do that all the time. It's not new. But to now for Chris Paul, who in Phoenix and hell, even going back to Oklahoma City, he was still getting MVP votes. He was still he was still asked to kind of be the real engine of the team. He's not going to be the engine of this Warriors team. We know that's Steph. We know
he also doesn't have to be.
Right. And we know to some degree it's Draymond. So now this is the whole having a dominant ace pitcher telling him to go to the bullpen automatically the next season. I think that's quite an adjustment. I don't know because yes, Chris Paul has had some of the health things recently, but when he's in the lineup, he doesn't, he's playing at a high level. So to do this whole change, I think is going to be very interesting to see. And then that's not even talking about the whole dynamics of him and Draymond, him and Steph, hell, him and Steve Kerr. Remember that whole fake laughing thing a couple of years ago with him on the Rockets?
I completely forgot about that.
I mean,
stuff like
again,
that
professionals can be professional sometimes, with certain things like that. But sometimes things like that can fester. Sometimes little things that we might shake off to them are real things. To them that linger. So I think this is going to be one of the most under the microscope, I would say, non-LeBron teams we've seen recently.
Yeah. Let's see. Can CP3 be the type who can live with not being the center of an offense? I think.
What is he going to do at that point? He's not going to be an off the ball guard. And what are you going to have him in? Just as a defensive guard? I mean, he can't. I mean, and that team is not a defensive powerhouse.
Right. So, but also that's why I think you kind of have a 1A and 1B, and yes, it is clearly Curry's team. It's honestly we were just talking about Scherzer and Verlander. There's a bit of overlap here, as far as you kind of have a 1A and 1B ace, but they're both close to the end, much closer to the end of their careers than the beginning.
Yeah, but
so you kind of assume that you only have one, but not the other at any given time because they're hurt half the time.
Yeah, it's tougher though because one guy's out there, one guy's play doesn't directly affect another guy's play, nor are their plays conflicting at one time. Obviously, Max, you're going today. Justin, you're going the next day or whatever. Justin Verlander first. So it's basketball with the whole continuing moving of pieces in and out of different lineup changes. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I really think they're going to start out very slow. Similar, remember when Heat, LeBron and D Wade first started, they were 9 and 8, 8 and 9, and they ended up winning 17 of the next 18 games and really started to get on track after that. It could be that type of a deal. I could, if it works, yes, I really could see them having one last run, but I think other moves, especially in the bigs department, need to be made.
None of this makes any of these teams better than Denver. That's the craziest part about all this.
Oh, God, no.
Right. So this is all rearranging the deck chairs. If Denver brings everybody back on paper, I don't see anybody. I've yet to see anybody make a move that shows them as any kind of threat to Denver next season.
And they haven't
I've yet to see that from any of these teams. Not the Lakers, not the Clippers, not the Warriors and Phoenix, nobody.
And if you noticed, Denver has not been mentioned or involved in one single trade yet, which is not.
They just won a championship. They don't need to.
Right, but free agency is going to be approaching soon, and there's nothing there. They really seem in-house and as an organization that they can really do something again this upcoming season. Hopefully with the same amount of roster, kind of do what Tampa did, but do it better and try and repeat. The Buccaneers in football, where you had the whole starting lineup return, which in the NFL especially is completely unheard of. To have 22 starting guys come back to be the same 22 the next opening weekend is crazy.
Yeah.
So
and then it is very rare in the game today. So many teams win and change up everything to save money. So far, Denver's keeping the ship going. They also don't have, aside from Jokic, they really don't have a lot of big money guys on that team. That's another big thing helping them.
Nor do they have any big contracts or Jamal Murray isn't coming up on a contract year yet.
I think he's got one more year.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Gordon. That's not. I mean, he might be the contract where that could maybe be a little much. A move that's possibly made. But honestly, I really think that they will try and keep this core together, and then kind of have some of those outer role guys. And like Kyle said, keep the ship going.
Yeah, and yes, that's exactly how you build these teams. That's how the Warriors built their team. Was they got lucky on some homegrown players and spent wisely. So that is how you build these teams. Miami's been doing it for 15 years. Or for yes, they put together the super team, but they did have Wade at first, and they've reloaded multiple times since then. Look at the Spurs. Yes, they've been down the past few years, but they once again got a generational talent through the stroke of luck. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. You had the Sixers with the process. All they have to show for it is Embiid and a bunch of garbage. Their best team was in 2019 and lost on that fluke bounce with Kawhi Leonard's shot that bounced 18 times and then into the net to blow their hopes. And then they chose, and then they were dumb enough to choose Brett Brown and Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler. So it takes luck. It takes just not overthinking things sometimes.
And it's not just luck with the Spurs. It's luck, but it's also doing something that they've been doing. So it's not luck and something that's out of their realm or something they haven't done. Like they've done that for 25 years now, going back to even David Robinson.
Yeah.
But not the international aspect of it, but just,
Mm-hmm.
and I think going to the Wembenyama, I think that's going to be a very interesting team to watch too. I think he's going to be fun.
Yeah, and they already. Speaking of Euro guys, the Spurs brought in Sandro Mamukelashvili, Mamu, Seton Hall guy. He was with Milwaukee. He was with Milwaukee on a two-way, but they really didn't have the space for him. So they let him go, and the Spurs picked him right up, and he was playing there. He was playing very well towards the end of last season. You bring in Wemby with him, and there's some other good young players on that team. But there's definitely potential there for them to make a move up the standings real quick, and especially when it's a team that has done it before, like the Spurs with Duncan and Robinson, and they found players like Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili where nobody else was looking. So if there's anybody who can do this, it's the Spurs.
Yeah, and then you hear this dinner that they have with Ginobili, David Robinson, and Tim Duncan with Wembenyama.
Did you see the picture of that?
I did. But just and then you just thinking about what could have been talked about, and just how none of these other draft picks can reap rewards like that. Can benefit from such a umbrella and this kind of overseeing of development and support. I think a dinner like that is worth as much as any contract that any team can throw at a player. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a history like that, when you have, or like the Celtics with all the Celtics or Lakers with all the ghosts they have, that kind of thing is, as you said, money goes beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Duncan looks like he's a roadie for Fish now or something.
Yeah, I mean, ever since retirement, he's got with the hair, and he's kind of really kind of just, I don't know, got really into himself, and he's just really enjoying retirement.
Hey,
God bless him. So
it's not like if he's smart with his money, he doesn't need it. It doesn't need to go crazy. Now, who was the last NBA draft? Rarely when they're overhyped like this the past few years. The last one hyped anywhere near this was Zion, when Zion's on the court.
But when Zion's on the court, he's exactly what he was hyped up to be.
Right, but he doesn't stay on the court, and he doesn't have a body. He doesn't have the right body type that is conducive to staying healthy and playing that style in the NBA. Like you can play like that as a 7-footer, but when you're only 6'8", it's
with that, with the jumping and the torque you're putting on your body at that, at that ferocity. It really is. And as a fan of Duke, I love seeing my Duke guys. So really, I want to see him back out there. New Orleans, somewhere else, doesn't matter. I just think the league is better when Zion is on the court. I think he's such a crowd. What is it? Like a showstopper. You know what I'm trying to say. So you really
somebody that sells tickets, and it's a style that people pay to see.
Right.
It's very flashy. Yeah. But and that works in college. Does that work consistently in the NBA with his style? Depends if he can actually stay on the floor, which he hasn't. But also there's some stuff where it seemed like the Pelicans may have just been tanking. And he could have come back towards the end of last season, and because what was the thing before the April Foolishness game where he said, "Oh yeah, I'm where he said the thing of like, I'm ready to play. I'm not ready to play until I'm Zion again. Yet he was shooting warm-ups before the game.
Yeah,
That whole
right.
thing was
I remember
weird.
that.
It made it seem like it wasn't actually his choice, and that was just some garbage that he made up on the spot.
Yeah, and then obviously he's got a whole nother multitude of things going on. But you know what? Is if
I
you're
don't
on
even
the
remember
court,
who the number one pick was last year.
yeah, you have Wemby. Last year was
Who was it last year? I don't even remember.
wasn't it Chet? No.
No, he
Oh.
was like
By the
number
way,
4.
because speaking of Chet, I saw this and I really would love to hear your thoughts on this. Chet is third in
Paolo Banchero.
Pat Powell, duh.
Mhm.
Chet is third in Rookie of the Year standing this coming into this season. I understand that if a guy is hurt, but yeah, Cade, and then you have Jalen Suggs, and
Mhm.
we'll go past that. But I really think that your rookie, if something tough, sorry, I don't believe in that. Like and then because Ben Simmons, the Rookie of the Year jokes until year 5 or 6. I mean, those have
Yeah.
finally stopped. So I just think, I don't know, to give a guy another chance or another
If he misses the entire season for injury, then I'm okay. Then I'm okay. Like Simmons and Blake Griffin did, then I'm
Blake
okay
Griffin
with
did it
Philly.
right.
Yeah,
I don't know.
only if but if they play like 10 games and then get hurt, no. Sorry, I agree with you there. I only agree with that if they miss the entire first season. Therefore, they don't actually make their league debut until the following year. So that I'm okay with waiting. With it being considered a rookie.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Paolo, Jalen Suggs, Towns, and Anthony Bennett was a disaster, and Wiggins. Man, there have been some terrible number 1 picks recently.
Yeah, and we have Banchero. Let's see, Banchero, Cade Cunningham,
Jalen Suggs,
Anthony Edwards. He's
Edwards is a
solid.
good one. Edwards
is a good.
Edwards is a good
one.
number 1 pick. Yeah.
But also with it, then Towns. So you have two number 1
Towns,
studs.
yeah, a guy who thinks his April foolishness run was better than the Nuggets run. Yeah, that's a great mindset to have. That's so insane. I don't know if you heard that.
I missed that one, but Towns.
Okay.
Towns is a character. Because he's a Jersey guy. So I've followed him since high school. He's always been like, he's a good guy, but also he seems to be hard to get along with. Him and Butler were ready to kill each other. That's why
because they're completely because if you would Jimmy Butler ever say something stupid like that?
No. And
no, he wouldn't.
A lot of what I read was that the reason that he wanted out of Minnesota so quick was because he thought that it was because that Butler didn't think that Towns was serious enough. Basically, he wasn't working hard enough and he wasn't taking the game seriously. And with Butler that drives him nuts. So he said, "All right, I'm out of here."
Yeah, essentially what it was. So Karl Anthony Towns was on the genius Pat Beverly, his podcast, and they were talking about their time in Minnesota together. And when they won their play-in game or to reach the 8th seed, in which I think lost in 6 games. I think it was that Memphis series that won 6 games. But essentially lost, right? It means nothing. And for Karl Anthony Towns and Pat Bev, and they had another host, some other random guy. For Karl Anthony Towns to sit there with a straight face and say that was absurd. And the other host is sitting there like, yeah, that's truth. I like him as a person. If you don't know story of certain issues he's had COVID
Yes.
and go look at. I feel for that.
Oh yeah.
But and relate to it. You can't say anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You have to have not only the straight up. I don't want to say loser mentality in terms of calling him a loser,
Mhm.
but to say something like that falls into the category of losing mentality,
Yeah.
and that's crazy. That's
Right.
supposed to be the cornerstone of the. He was supposed to be the next Garnett for that franchise.
Yeah. Now, how about this? How about this one? Let's go with the 2018 NBA draft.
Okay.
So you have DeAndre Ayton at number 1
Oh,
to Phoenix. Okay, solid player. I personally don't
average.
think he's number 1 pick good, but then you had Marvin Bagley the third, another Duke guy, going to Sacramento, where where he's did he play well this year? I didn't follow. I didn't really follow the Kings until the playoffs.
He was he was all right.
Yeah, again, good, but not number 2 pick good. Then you have Doncic at 3, Jaren Jackson Jr. at 4, and Trae Young at 5. And of course, Doncic and Young traded for each other.
Right.
But you have Doncic and Young at 3 and 5. So that makes Ayton and Bagley look way worse.
Yeah, it's just. And then coming into this draft, this is the perfect leeway. You have Wemby, the obvious number 1 pick.
There were some flops in the 90s, too. Remember Michael Olowokande and Joe what was it? And Joe Smith. I think it was a Warriors bust.
Brutal.
95. So the draft is a crapshoot in most years. That's why. And there's also sometimes just some drafts where the entire draft is a dud. Like the 2013 draft, where Giannis was, I think, 14th, but the rest of that first round was
wasn't that Bennett's year?
Brutal. I believe so.
Yeah. It's this year, and like I said, perfect leeway, and we had talked about this, wanting to talk about it on the show. Michael Jordan with the Hornets. First off, you're selling your majority stake to then pick for that team this year and then do a Magic Johnson and dip in the middle of the night, essentially.
Yeah.
I think is so absurd. And the Hornets, rest of the organization and ownership staff, just lay down and let Michael Jordan continue to walk over them like he has since he took over that team. I just don't get how you have the obvious Wembanyama first. Obviously, nothing you can do about that. But then everybody, scouts, experts, analysts, it's Wemby and Scoot. And you, Michael Jordan, considering your own draft story and your draft history with the Hornets / Bobcats, continuously doesn't learn. I just don't get it.
See, even in '84, everybody says, "Oh, Portland's stupid for taking Sam Bowie over."
Yes,
over
I get
Jordan.
it. Yeah, 2020, that's fine.
Right, but I'm getting to that. But the point is, Portland made that pick because they had Clyde Drexler. There's no Clyde Drexler on this Hornets team.
No, there isn't. Who? LaMelo?
They seem to think he is, apparently. But all right, solid player, but not a Hall of Famer, at least not yet.
But at what point does this ownership get attached to the mystique? Again, another negative that is blatantly dismissed because it would hurt his chances of or hurt his image because God forbid somebody as great as Michael Jordan ends up being the second greatest ever. Oh my God, how terrible is that?
I will say this. When it's going to look a lot different in a few years. And I say when, not if, because I'm pretty confident that this will happen. And he said he wants
me
to.
too.
LeBron will be an
Me too.
owner too. I wouldn't be surprised if he buys the Cavs from Gilbert, when he wants to sell, or he dies and his family sells or whatever. I could easily see LeBron buying the Cavs, or it could be some other random team. Who knows? But I'm going to guess he's probably going to have a much better track record as an owner than Jordan has with the Hornets.
It's because, you know what? Because we do this with the extra stuff, right? It's not just the court stuff. It's what he did with his shoes and the marketing and Space Jam and just all of it. Well, that's fine. Well, LeBron has a kid who's going to be a decently high draft pick. Why doesn't that count for LeBron's legacy? Then we should add that. Why why don't we add his shoes and the fact that he was $1 billion athlete while playing? Why don't we add all of the extra stuff to him the same way? Because we have guys that are NBA guys that have been around for so long. A guy like a Phil Jackson or a Pat Riley or somebody that has been through multiple stages of, they were a player, they were a coach, executive, owner, whatever the case may be. Jerry West, and all of it is added up.
Yes.
Right? When you look at Jerry West, we look at, yes, what he did as a player, and he's the logo, and what he did with the Lakers, what he did with the Clippers, what he did with the Warriors. We add that. Pat Riley, what he did as a player, as a coach for the Knicks and the Lakers, and what he did for the Heat. We add all that, but we don't do it with Mike. And it's just another piece of evidence to my ongoing issue with this whole thing. And it's just
a lot of superstars are bad coaches. A lot of Hall of Fame. It is rare for Hall of Fame players to become Hall of Fame coaches. As we see with Kyle uses Jason Kidd as an example. He's been a terrible coach.
Even with guy like Larry Bird, we don't even really throw in the whole cases.
I was about to mention Larry Bird is the only one I could think of who actually was a Hall of Fame player and actually backed it up as a coach.
Yeah, and maybe Bill Russell, maybe.
Sort of,
right?
But not really. So, after he retired as a player, he did coach a few other teams after the Celtics, and did not do well. Lenny Wilkins, if you're really going way back, it's about it.
Yeah, it's really it's not a very big group, so I would just again, this is such an uphill battle that I fight on the daily. It's exhausting, but it's a dirty job. Someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's crazy. And you see the video of their arena. It's, watching the draft party, watch party. And everybody, including the mascot, is just audibly annoyed at this pick. Because they know. They know. We know, but Mike doesn't know. Okay. All right. That's fine.
Yeah. One last topic that I'll say my quick piece on the union, and then you have one last topic that you wanted to bring up regarding some changes to a TV package.
Yeah, that'll be my last thing. So, but you with your winning team, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, so with the union, it was a very strange night on Saturday at Subaru Park, because you had the circus in town with Inter Miami, yet the Lions haven't actually shown up yet, and people bought tickets expecting the white horse of Lionel Messi and now Sergio Busquets to come in. Yeah, they're not coming till next month. So in the meantime,
All you have to do
they're
is research.
in the meantime they are absolutely
free.
horrible. And why do you? And there's a hilarious picture of a guy who brought a sign saying I flew 1,200 miles to see Messi. Okay, so you bought a plane ticket, but you couldn't do a simple Google search. Smart move. Yeah, okay, but 4-1 in a game that the Union didn't even play well, and one of the funniest own goals I've ever seen, where a guy slipped and the ball went backwards off the crossbar and into his own net.
Ooh. I'll have to check that out. I love seeing mishaps like that.
Yeah, and just that, but the Union are making their move up the standings, but they're still fourth in the East. You have Cincinnati up top, but they're 2 points behind New England for second and 1 point behind Nashville for third. The Union, we'll see what happens with the midseason transfer window, which is coming soon, because that's usually when there's a lot of, because in soccer where they have transactions are limited in midseason to a 2-week window. So you don't have, so it's kind of like a trade deadline and free agency all in one in the middle of the season, but it's only during this period instead of throughout the whole season, which is interesting to watch. So we'll see what happens with that. But now you have some thoughts on YouTube, on SNY. Let's go for it.
Again, it's just baseball with their continuous of these another example basically of these blackouts that, yes, YouTube TV is my main form that I watch, get the live TV stuff. And I'm still in a household that does have cable, so I do have a cable box. So I am not missing even if I choose to watch, because I am not choosing to watch very frequently. But that is not the point. I just, again, we talk about this all the time, how there are other sports that are growing in popularity. And something like this for baseball does not help them battle that. To have your own teams blacked out in your market from the big TV / streaming / cable providers that we use is actually the most frustrating thing as a fan of baseball. I would argue that this whole TV issue is equally as frustrating as watching my terrible Mets.
It absolutely is, and this is an issue, and why this is a topic I love.
Such an idiot.
Yeah, I love talking about this topic and how these leagues have all cut off their nose to spite their face for a business model that is completely collapsing around them. So SNY and all these RSNs say, RSN meaning Regional Sports Network, like MSG, NBC Sports Philly, all of the Bally's networks. SNY is doing the same thing that all the Bally's networks did, which is ask for a crazy amount from the Comcasts and the Optimums of the world. Pay me X per subscriber to carry the channel. And the cable providers are saying, you want that much for a channel that could be showing test patterns between games and doesn't really get much in the way of ratings? Go pound sand. That's what happened with Optum and MSG and Comcast. So, and the Denver Nuggets, the NBA champions, most of Colorado has not been able to watch their network, Altitude Sports, which is stuck in a similar dispute with a lot of cable providers. So what's the answer? You have Nesson, Yes Network, and MSG trying to offer over-the-top service. But they're charging $30 a month for it because that's what it costs when you don't have everybody praying for it. When it's not spread out between everybody, or as Scott likes to say, when every old lady where the only judge they care about is Judy, is paying for the Yes Network, then it costs less for everybody else. But it's also inherently not really fair for people to pay through the nose for something they don't even watch. And as more eras of consumer choice, choosing what services, what channels, and all you want. I have a YouTube TV password as well. The only thing I use it for, and the only thing I use for any live network, for any kind of live TV coverage that isn't on an antenna that I can pick up, with a digital antenna channel, the only thing I'm watching is sports, because it's the only thing worth watching on all of television. So you can keep having this battle. And this is why why Major League Soccer is absolutely genius to do this the way that they have with the Apple TV deal. You pay one price, you get all of the games, regular season, playoffs, no blackouts. These other leagues, especially Major League Baseball, need to watch this and get their crap together and figure out how to make this work and get out of all of these deals, which you have Bally Sports is bankrupt and isn't even paying the teams, yet through all of the back and forth in bankruptcy court, they still need to go team by team to figure this out. You had the Phoenix Suns and the Mercury, where their contract with their Bally's network ran out after this season. So they said, okay, you're not paying us, and we don't have a deal for next year. So we're gonna make a deal to put it on a local over-the-air channel. Utah Jazz are doing the same thing next year. Almost like going back to the future. Like when the Mets games were on Channel 9 and the Yankees games were on Channel 11. Maybe that's where we're heading. The problem with that is that they're not paying what these regional sports networks were, and that's going to be a massive chunk of local revenue lost. And where are they making that up?
Another
baseball, especially. I don't see where that comes from.
I also think you say like Utah and Phoenix, smaller markets can get this done. But I can't see bigger markets with just how congested everything is there, how they can do that.
What else is Channel 11 going to show you on a Friday night?
I don't know. Everybody loves Raymond reruns, which I wouldn't mind. I'll take those over the Mets right now.
Yeah. And yes, everybody thought that the Bally's bankruptcy would be the way for Major League Baseball to get it back. Just unfortunately, as that works its way through bankruptcy court, it is not going as well, and it's kind of a team-by-team basis. For the only regional sports networks that will continue to exist, and even that is going to be a stretch, are the ones that the team owns them, like the Yes Network,
right?
Like SNY,
MSU.
Yes, and SNY. As of now, I don't think they have their own standalone app yet, but I'd imagine that they're coming out with it soon.
I think they do.
They do have an app, but I think you have to log in with a cable subscription. Like you can't they have the Yes Network and the MSG network apps that you can buy without a cable subscription for $30 a month.
Right, and then they just channel the viewing through that. Right.
How many people are paying $30 a month to watch this garbage from the Mets?
No,
would you pay an extra $30 a month to watch this team?
No, I'd rather go to a bar and drink for $30. Yes, at least I can forget it afterwards.
Yeah,
but I'll take an Uber home though, not driving.
Hey, that's the important part.
So maybe at that point, yeah, it'll add up to more. But
yeah, I did the same thing with Jets games for a while. Because I wasn't able to watch them at home. I would just go to a bar and watch a game. And that usually only lasted about 2 or 3 weeks before it wasn't worth my time or money anymore. And I could go about my life.
Sure.
So the biggest issue that you have with all of these regional sports network and all of the blackout problems is as the entire cable model collapses and everybody's losing money, especially with half the industry being on strike, and possibly the other half, going on strike soon, depending on how the SAG negotiations go.
Oh man, the NFL, NBA script writers, they're on strike. Oh, how season. Oh man, there's gonna have to be a real season played without any rigged outcomes.
Don't worry, they'll just recycle scripts from previous years. I believe that's what the NFL's been doing for a while. Just but really, this model is unsustainable for all of these leagues. The ones that are unaffected, the NFL, who like any good drug dealer, you need to put product out there to push. You can't grow fans if it's behind a paywall. The NFL has most of their deals all nationalized and mostly on broadcast networks that you can get over the air. You can always, even if it's on Amazon Prime or ESPN or whatever, you can watch you can watch your local team on a over the air antenna channel. Like if it's NFL, on Amazon Prime, if the Jets are playing on Amazon Prime, Channel 7 or whoever will pick it up.
The NFL, though, has reached this stage of too big to fail. Like you hear that with businesses in that regard, where it's just NFL is king, and there's nothing that can overtake that. So
I think there might be some decline coming for the NFL with the safety concerns, but it's not going to disappear. It will still be around. It will probably still be the top for years to come. But are we still saying that 20, 30 years from now? I'm not sure. That might be when things might start to come. But yeah, they have a lot of time to rake in billions before that.
We could be living on Mars by then. Who knows?
Right, and soccer is the fastest growing sport in the country. I think we'll surpass baseball and probably hockey within the next 5 to 10 years. Will they pass football? That is further down the road, way further. But in the meantime, the NFL is king until proven otherwise. The NFL isn't dealing with any of this regional sports network garbage. Major League Soccer not dealing with any of it because they have it all on a streaming service with occasional games on FS1 or Fox. So it's the NBA, the NHL, and especially Major League Baseball that gets the biggest share of their revenue through local deals. And if these networks go away and aren't paying the money, yes, they might they need to figure out ways for streaming, and the MLB has been working on that to their credit. But they counted on this money as a meal ticket for these crazy contracts that they give to these players. And as that revenue drops, there's going to be some big issues with you might see the salary cap start to go down in the NBA and NHL if they don't figure out these revenue streams. The NBA's contract, while they have the collective bargaining agreement stuff worked out, the TV negotiations, especially as everything in media is so crazy right now, the NBA might have an issue.
Oh, man. At least the Jets are, again, if it weren't for my excitement for the Jets, I would legitimately be the most miserable sports fan right now.
Right. We have another 2 months of hope before Aaron Rodgers tears an ACL in training camp.
We already had our ACL tear this year with Clark.
That means they're due at least 1 or 2 more. All right, but we're about an hour in. Let's, we can wrap this up. Any final thoughts for you, Brandon?
I've said my piece. I'm good.
All right. And you can check us out next week. You can also go to our YouTube channel, see some of the fights from the Westchester Fight Night Muay Thai event that we covered, and check out any of our writing on our website, streampunkent.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week, and stay awesome.